her brother Cable. So we're not going to judge Audrey's instant purchase of this book. Hi. Okay. I'm in. I'll get back to you on that. But I really. What's next? Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. And welcome to a video where I am going to talk about a whole bunch of authors that I love that I need to be reading more of. And I am also super excited to talk about Book of the Month, who is once again sponsoring today's video. And actually 2 of this month's selections directly inspired my video for today. But before we talk about the books, let's talk about Book of the Month. So you guys, I'm not even gonna bury the lead. You can get your first book for only $5 using the code FLOWERS. So I will link all of their information down below, the link to their website, all the info you need to know. And you guys, did you know? Book of the Month has audiobooks now too. So you can choose a hardcover book or an audiobook under the same subscription. All you need to do is download the Book of the Month app. You can listen to your audiobooks through it and you are off and running and on your way. So you guys know, Book of the Month is absolutely amazing. They have all the genres. They have new and emerging authors. They have authors that you know and love. Hardcover books, now they have audiobooks, and the selection is just out of this world. I have discovered so many new authors through this. I have found some of my favorite authors hanging out at Book of the Month, and it's just absolutely a no-brainer, easy, comes right to your door. Now it comes right to your phone through the audiobook portion of their app. So definitely go check them out. Check out all of the information down below. Let's talk about 2 of the books that I picked this month. So I picked up Abby Jimenez, Yours Truly. I read Part of Your World last year and I absolutely loved it. This is actually a companion novel to that book and it was one of my most anticipated books in April, so you guys heard me talk about it a bit in that video. And then I also picked up Christina Lauren's new book, The True Love Experiment. So I know, who am I right now? I am living my best romance life right now, I swear. I feel like springtime has melted my dark little heart and I'm definitely wanting some warm and fuzzies mixed in with like wit and banter and just like great relationship stories and beautiful characters and 2 authors who I have read from before. And here's the thing, I need to be reading more from them. So this is part of today's inspiration. We're going to talk a little bit more about these books in half a second. But one more time, don't forget, with the code FLOWERS, you can get your first book for only $5. So definitely head on over to Book of the Month's website. You can see all of the books that you can choose from this month. And now let's get into the video and you can see all of the authors that I chose to talk about in today's video. See what I did there? So to start, let's dive a little bit deeper on Abby Jimenez. So I discovered Abby Jimenez, I should say she came onto my radar last year when Part of Your World was a Book of the Month selection, and I absolutely loved this book. I've talked about it on here, obviously it was one of my favorite books of last year. But in this one, we are following Alexis and Daniel. So Alexis is a doctor. She winds up basically getting a flat tire and gets stranded in this small town, and Daniel like literally comes to her rescue when she's stuck on the side of the road. And after quite the meet cute relationship, crush ensues, not without some complications. But this is everything I love in a romance rom-com book, in that we get all of that great relationship stuff. There's great wit and banter. There's a lot of really great humor in this. There's also a weightiness to it, which you guys know I love me some weightiness in a book. And you get to see some family dynamics about living up to expectations, about not necessarily maybe wanting to be in the role that you've been slotted into since birth, and really finding your way and finding yourself. And I just loved everything about it. And then in her new book, Yours Truly, and I have to admit, when I first talked about this, I did not connect the dots when I did my most anticipated books of April video, which you may have seen. But the main character in this, Bree, is also a doctor, and she was Alexis's best friend, so she appears in this book. So I have recently gotten into some companion novels, a little bit accidentally, but very much enjoying it. So I don't know how much Alexis and Daniel will play into this. Daniel. It sounded like I said Danny. But in this one we have Bree, and then we have a new doctor in town, and there's a little bit of a rub when they first meet each other, Dr. Jacob Maddox. But I think it becomes a little bit of suspicion about his motives. She thinks he's trying to steal her job, and then they start to develop a friendship, and then I think maybe a relationship ensues. It's rom-com, so there is a little bit of optimist in my dark and messed upness. So I'm hoping happy endings all around. But I'm very excited for more of Abby. I am very late to the game on her, but I really enjoy her writing. So next up, just a little bit of a dip. Again, Christina Lauren. So this is The True Love Experiment. So I read Love in Other Words a few years back, and it was recommended by Sarah at Sarah's Nightstand, who at the time I didn't know, who now I can very happily call my friend. And I absolutely loved everything about it. And again, it was the kind of romance that I like, where it's not just straight up romance, but you do get complicated relationships, you get some complicated family things, you get past and present timelines in that book, and I loved everything about it. And I just keep saying I'm gonna read more Christina Lauren, I'm gonna read more Christina Lauren, and I haven't done it yet. So when this one came on the scene, I was like, all right, I'm going in. So in this one, it's sparks fly when a romance novelist and documentary filmmaker join forces to craft the perfect Hollywood love story, but only if they can keep the chemistry between them from taking the whole thing off script. So you guys know me, I love a book about writers, and I'm just very excited for this. So excited to read some more Christina Lauren, and very excited to have these books. So then I went into a deep dive onto my bookshelf, and these are in absolutely no particular order. We're just going to talk about them in the order that they're piled next to me. So the next author I have is Kate Alice Marshall. So I read Rules for Vanishing, which is a YA horror kind of ghost story a couple of years ago. I read it a couple of years ago. It's like a YA horror ghost story. And it's about a girl whose sister went missing. And a year later, as legend has it, basically a portal opens in the woods where you can go in, and she believes that's where her sister was lost, and she and her friends go to try and find her sister. So I actually have a couple of Kate Alice Marshall options. So this is a YA book. This is her adult book, her first adult novel, which came out. So These Fleeting Shadows was kind of compared to like a Knives Out vibe, which I love. And I actually, earlier this year, this is another book I'm going to talk about. You can see that there's like, obviously I'm drawn to certain things, but You Must Remember This by Kat Rosenfeld. So this is another one where it's about someone in the family inheriting a house or inheriting a family fortune, and then you get other people in the family questioning things. This also has a little bit of a Hawthorne legacy vibe to it. So in this one, it says the bid for her family's inheritance will leave Helen Vaughn either rich or dead. So there's some rules to her having this inheritance, which includes staying on the grounds of Harrowstone Hall for a year, or she'll be left with nothing. So that's kind of where the Hawthorne Legacy vibes comes into it. That's the Jennifer Lynn Barnes book, which is like games and twists and riddles. So I don't know if this has that kind of a vibe to it, but I believe it has a bit of a, I don't know if it's ghosty or if it's just kind of spooky, and there's definitely a mystery to it. So that's her YA book. And then I also have, like I said, her adult book, which is What Lies in the Woods. And this one is about a group of friends who, again, one of my favorite tropes in a book, where we get a past and present timeline. Something happened when they were children. It's coming back to haunt them as adults. So it says they were 11 when they sent a killer to prison. They were heroes, but they were liars. So whatever happened in the woods that night with these girls, somebody is lying about something and lying about what happened, and it's all about to come out. So we'll see. We'll see which direction I go in for her. But I really enjoyed Rules for Vanishing. It definitely creeped me out quite a bit also, which I wasn't expecting. That was when I was kind of still reinserting myself into YA books, and they don't write them like they did when I was a kid, which is a good thing, because they're just so smart and so well written, and definitely on the creepy side, which I really enjoyed. So there's that one. So let's talk about Kat Rosenfeld. So earlier this year, I read You Must Remember This. So in this book, we are following Delphine, and she is up at her grandmother's house in Maine with her mother, and her grandmother has dementia. She is in her 80s, and they are gathering together along with her mother's brother and sister to celebrate sort of a final Christmas together. And this is told in two timelines. So we get to meet her grandmother Miriam as a young girl and as she grows up, and we get to see her marriage and her relationship and her family complications. And then we get to see her in the present day, and also sort of this mystery about what happened. And it is very well done. It's gothic, it's creepy. There's an eeriness to this, and there's a real family mystery to it. And then there's also a little bit of levity and humor, but I really enjoyed her writing. This was sort of pitched as Knives Out meets Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is why I definitely was like, must have it, must read it. And I actually had picked up her first book, No One Will Miss Her, or actually, I don't know if this is her first book or just the first book that I got Nope, she has also written some YA books. So I believe this is her first adult novel. So this is No One Will Miss Her. And I actually picked this up last year and I haven't read it yet. Hence the point of the video. One, not done. These are not related to each other in any way. These are both standalone books. So it says, my name is Lizzie Willette, and if you're reading this, I'm already dead. The funny thing is, some people will say I had it coming. Maybe not in so many words, maybe not quite so out in the open, but give it time, just wait. They can say what they like, I know the truth, and for once I have no reason not to tell it, not anymore. So, thriller, and again, I feel like there's probably, I don't know if there's going to be gothic vibes to this. This one also takes place in Maine. And I'm just really excited about it. I really enjoyed her writing. I enjoyed her characters so much. This was such a well-written book. And I really just sort of dove into it. And it was a bit of a slow burn. Like I said, a bit of a mystery. And I really just enjoyed, like, as much as I love a fast-paced thriller, I also love a slow burn of a book. So again, her writing really engaged me. And I'm excited to read more from her. So that's Kat Rosenfeld. So speaking of fast-paced thrillers, I read The Housemaid by Freda McFadden earlier this year, which you guys would know if you've been here. And you'll also know that I picked up The Housemaid's Secret because I was going to read it immediately. And then I just got distracted by other books and I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to. So I have this. This is, I think, the only books that are a series. I have one book that's a start of a series, but these are actually... I haven't read this yet, so I don't know if for fact you have to read this first, but my thought process is you probably do. So in the first book, we are following a woman who gets a job as a nanny gig out on Long Island for this very rich family and for their daughter. I want to say she's like 10 years old, and Millie very quickly sort of learns things about this family and things start to happen. And this is definitely super bingey. This is like one of those pick a rainy afternoon, sit down, and you will just finish the entire book kind of a book. It's super compulsive in that way. And I loved it. I loved the dark and messed upness of it. And I'm very excited to see what she does next. I also have The Locked Door. Freda McFadden has quite a backlist of books, which makes me very excited, obviously, because there's so much more to get into. But I was really pulled in just by the writing and the twists and the characters. And it was one of those books where, like, I thought I knew what was going to happen, and then she completely turned it on me, which I love. And I'm just excited to see what else she gets up to. So definitely dark and messed up with that sort of rich people behaving badly kind of a side to it as well. So very fun, right up my alley. And then this next book, this book in particular is actually the first in a series, but you don't have to read just series books. So this is Sharon Bolton. This is The Craftsman. So I read The Pact last year. And again, that is another one of those books where we have a group of friends who something happened in the past, kind of like in an If We Were Villains vibe. So something bad happened in the past. One of the people from the group took the hit. She offered to go to jail for them and take the blame. And she was kind of like, when I get out, I'm going to come back and cash in this favor to all of you. And they're like, all right, great, sure. And eventually she gets out of prison and she comes a call-in and she comes to reclaim her favors. And things are kind of dark and messed up. So I very much enjoyed her writing. Sharon Bolton has written a whole bunch of books. I have a whole bunch of her books. I just haven't read any of them yet. So The Craftsman, I've heard amazing things about, and this is a serial killer book. And it actually now is the first in a series, so there's only 2 books out in this, and then she has several other series, and I know you guys are gonna like ask me what they are. So this came out in 2018, and at the time she had written 10 other books, including the Lacey Flint series, so that's the other series that she's known for. She also wrote Daisy in Chains, which is a standalone, which I also have, which I also talk about on here ad nauseum. One of these days I'm gonna read it, you guys. But I loved her writing, again, sort of that dark, messed upness in the first book, the complications of friendships, and then I do enjoy a serial killer book. No judgment, no judgment. But in this one, we are following a police detective, Florence Lovelady. 30 years ago, her career was made when she caught the serial killer, and now decades later, he is dead, but events from the past are starting to repeat themselves. So is someone copying the original murder? Was somebody else involved back then? We're gonna find out what happens. So, detective novel, great. Her writing was so good. So good. Another author that I've talked about on here, obviously, this is all about authors I loved, is Allie Reynolds. So this is The Bay. This is her second book. So I read Shiver. I'm losing track of time. I read it last year, right? Yeah, I read it last year and I loved it. I completely I have lost all track of what time is. And it was, again, a past and present mystery. It was, in that one, it was a group of friends who were snowboarders. They were Olympic hopefuls. They were competing. And 10 years ago, when they were training for the Olympics together, one of the people in their group went missing. And now they are reuniting to sort of mourn her, the 10-year anniversary of her going missing. And what they don't realize is they are being lured to an isolated place, and then there were none. And somebody's looking for a little bit of revenge. So I suspect that the Bay is also going to keep me on my toes and totally pull me in. Shiver had a bit of a romance woven into it, which normally is not something I gravitate towards in a thriller, but it really worked for me. And the characters, as Allie Reynolds painted them, were so great. And the story was great, and great twists and a bit of action thrown in. It was like everything I wanted. And that was another book that I binged super quickly. So in this one, we are actually in Sydney and we are following some surfers. So I feel like that sounds like a lot of fun. So Allie Reynolds herself was a competitive snowboarder, and I feel like she really captured that, which makes sense. So I'm excited to see her surfing capturing. That doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean. I'm excited to see how she relays the surfing in this, because I imagine it's going to be very engrossing in a way that isn't technical, that it takes you out of the book, but really authenticates the story. And I am not someone who skis. I certainly don't snowboard. I've skied once in my life. And it was just such an authentic feel. You could feel like you were on the snowboard. You could appreciate what they were doing. I could certainly appreciate how hard it was. And I loved everything about it. So this one is The Waves Won't Wash Away What They Did. So this one is about a girl named Kenna, and she kind of stumbles upon this group of people who are surfing in this remote spot called Sorrow Bay, and she kind of party crashes. And there's some people who aren't totally jazzed that she's there and other people who are fine with it. And I suspect she's going to regret that she crashed this party, because there's some bad stuff going down. So that is a very loose, not quite looking at the description because I don't want to ruin it, description of this book, but I love me some Allie Reynolds. So I've got that one going. And then another author that I've talked about a lot recently, because I just discovered her recently. So this is Lynn Hendrix. So I read Her Husband's Murder. This is the UK cover. The US edition is called It Could Be Anyone. And then her first book in the US is called Finding Tessa. UK is His Missing Wife. So I did read this book. I loved it. This is a group of friends who go to a destination wedding. One of the friends in the group is marrying this guy that none of the friends like very much. And on the first page of the book, the groom is murdered at the wedding. And then we go back in time as they land in Miami for the destination wedding, and we lead up to it to see what happens. And then we also get some past timelines woven in. So we get multiple POVs, everyone from the friend group. I feel like if you look at the dog ear, you can see how much I loved this book. Absolutely loved it. Another compulsive read. So I'm excited to read His Missing Wife, Finding Tessa, same book. This is her first book. And then her newest book, I Didn't Do It, which comes out in May. So if you guys saw my May new releases video, that one takes place at a fictional writer conference called Murderpalooza, which is very loosely based, wink wink, on Thriller Fest. And one of the writers gets murdered. And it's very much like, who better to commit a murder and solve a murder than people who write them for a living? So I do have the e-arc of that, which I'm probably going to dive into before this. This is one of those cases where she's got 3 books, so I'm trying to pace myself because I really love her writing. So stay tuned for that. But I'm a huge fan of hers. Again, not afraid to go to the dark places. Really did a beautiful job with this friend group. I feel like it was very authentic in their relationships. She has, like I said, multiple POVs. All the friends have a POV, but they are all so unique. They are all so distinct. Sometimes, when you get too many characters in a book, it can be hard. I've had this problem in reading with character soup, where you can't always distinguish one from the next, but I think she did a spectacular job making each character unique and knowing which POV you were in. Sorry, my phone is vibrating. And I just loved it so much. So need to read more of her, and I'm going to. Next up is the last book I read in 2022, and this is Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane. So I have had this book on my shelf for a couple of years, I want to say, and I really loved it. This is a case of what took me so long, and this was the case of a book that actually went darker than I expected. Yeah, this came out in 2020. So I sort of thought it was going to be, and I just made this up in my head, that it was going to be like a little bit lighter domestic suspense, and it was wonderfully dark, and I was so happy about it. So in this one it says, shouldn't a dead husband stay dead? So Lila Ridgefield lives in an idyllic college town, but not everything is what it seems. Lila isn't what she seems. So we had some missing students, and now Lila's husband Aaron is also missing. And the tagline here is, everyone except his wife is worried about what happened to this beloved high school teacher. But Lila is more confused because she was the last person to see her husband's body, and now it's gone. This was so much fun. We also get some police investigation in this, which I always enjoy. And I really enjoyed her writing very much. So of course, I picked up another book. So this is The Replacement Wife. And it says, she's not like the others. So in this one, I also love the premise of, and we get, how many wives and girlfriends need to disappear before your family notices? So Elisa is a mom and wife living a nice quiet life in a nice quiet town. But she's also convinced that her brother-in-law is a murderer. You know, it happens. So Josh has one dead wife, one missing fiance, and even though he has like properly mourned them and been oh so sad, he also has a brand new girlfriend. And I think that Elise is probably a little bit worried for her because her brother-in-law does not have a great track record, and she winds up doing some investigating and she's not totally loving what she finds. So I'm expecting, again, some dark domestic suspense here. I hope we get some police investigation again. I'm trying to think the last time I read a book that had some police in it. But I really enjoyed how she wove the police investigation into this book. And sometimes I like my police investigation like straight up, that's what we're doing, we're following a detective. Sometimes I very much enjoy a book that we, like police are secondary characters, we don't really see them, maybe they're more of a nuisance in some of the books, investigating something. And then in the case of at least this book, I'm dropping the other one, we had it just beautifully woven in, very much like the new J.T. Ellison book, It's One of Us, where you get police investigation woven into that psychological suspense as well. So I don't know, I'm projecting what I want this book to be, but we'll see. But I know it's going to be great writing, and I'm very excited for it. Darby Kane also had a new book come out, I want to say the end of last year as well, so definitely more to dig into with her, which I'm very psyched for. And then we have, let's go this way. So another book that I read last year that I loved is Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. This was definitely a difficult book to read in terms of the violence that is in this book, but it is also one of those books where it very much serves the story and is not there for shock or for exploitation. And that doesn't make it any less difficult if that's not your thing. So this is definitely not a for everyone kind of a book, but if you are intrigued by him, I would highly recommend it because it was so beautifully well done in that you have sort of this juxtaposition of this violence and this really harsh reality of things, but the core of this book is two fathers, a black father and a white father, who are out for revenge because their sons, who were married to each other, have been murdered. And the police investigation has gone cold, and these fathers want to get revenge for their sons' murders. So these two men who don't know each other, don't particularly like each other, don't particularly see eye to eye on much of anything except for the fact that they are out there to get revenge for their kids, band together to get said revenge. They are both ex-cons, they both have a lot of past and history to grapple with, and there is a huge emotional punch to this book on top of everything else. And it just was spectacular. I had heard great things about it. I was not disappointed at all. And I need to read some more S.A. Cosby. I am dropping papers from inside of this. So I have Blacktop Wasteland. Nothing if not prepared. So I have Blacktop Wasteland. So in this one, we are following a man whose nickname is Bug. And it says he's an honest mechanic, a loving husband, and a hardworking dad. He knows there's no future for the man he used to be. Known from the hills of North Carolina to the beaches of Florida as the best wheelman on the East Coast. So he thought he'd left that all behind, but he finds himself drawn back in to that life. It says, when a smooth-talking former associate comes calling with a can't-miss jewelry store heist, Bug feels he has no choice but to get back in the driver's seat. And Bug is at his best when the scent of gasoline mixes with the smell of fear. If that is any indication of what a beautiful writer S.A. Cosby is, I don't know what is. So I've heard great things about this book. I definitely, like I said, loved this so much. So I'm excited to explore more of his works. He has a new book coming out this year. Off the top of my head, I am blanking 1000%. So his new book that is coming out is called All the Sinners Bleed. And then his first book was actually reissued this year. It's called My Darkest Prayer. So a little bit of selection to have for him, but I really enjoy his writing. Such a beautiful writer. And like I said, such a mix of very challenging subject matter with such beautiful writing. I definitely cried when I was reading this. And he just writes so lyrically and so beautifully, even describing really difficult things. There's just such a poetry to his writing, and I just very much enjoyed it. And I have watched a few interviews with him. I particularly saw an interview he did with Jennifer Hillier, and he just, like, watching authors talk about their work gets me so much more excited about their work. And he just spoke with such passion and such love for his writing, and it just made me even more excited to read more from him. So we'll definitely be reading some more S.A. Cosby happening. And then I have Lexi Elliott. So this is How to Kill Your Best Friend. So I read The French Girl years ago when it first came out. And that's another one where you have a group of friends who did a thing in the past and it's coming back to haunt them in the present. And you've got secrets and lies and dual timelines and all that great stuff that happens. And then this one, I needed to know nothing about it other than the title of it. I was like, I'm in. I'm totally in. Tell me nothing, but I'll tell you a little something. So it says, if you suspected your best friend, the person you were closest to in the whole world, was a murderer, what would you do? Would you confront her? Would you help her? Would you help keep her secret? Or would you begin to feel afraid? Most importantly, why don't you feel safe now that she's dead? Hi. Okay. I'm in. So we had 3 friends. They were totally inseparable. Somebody drowned. There's some mystery to how it happened, what's going on, and we're going to find out. So, like I said, I really enjoyed her first book so much. And I also have The Missing Years, which I think has a bit of, I don't know if it has a supernatural vibe to it or if it's just a gothic one, like a gothic vibe. And that is about a girl who I want to say like inherits a house. There's definitely some dark mystery going on in that one. But I love just a dark and messed up female friendship, like big time. So this is where I plan to go next with Lexi Elliott, and I'm very excited for it. Also, stunning cover. So not that it's a reason to pick up a book, but it's totally a reason to pick up a book. So we've got this one going. And then for my finale, for at least now, not an all-inclusive list, you're going to get a sneak peek of a book that I have not yet shown in an upcoming book haul. So you guys know that I completely obsessed over Lore by Alexandra Bracken, which was a YA fantasy mythology who am I book that I completely fell in love with when I read it. And this was not even really on my radar until previously mentioned friend Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand dropped it back onto my radar. So this is Silver in the Bone. This is a brand new book that came out by her a couple weeks ago. I maybe 1000% ran out to the store to buy it because Sarah got me completely amped for this. And part of it, like Sarah was talking about it, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like Lore was like such a unique experience for me. So this is actually the first in a new series. And what got me is I was doing that Instagram scroll, as I'm likely to do. If you don't follow me there, love to have you. Love me some Instagram. But Alexandra Bracken was standing in Faneuil Hall in Boston, and her description box was basically like, or her, whatchamacallit, the quote underneath it was basically like, I can't believe I'm standing in the same place where Silver in the Bone starts. And I was like, I'm sorry, your book takes place in Boston? I'm going to the store to pick this book up. So I had no idea. You guys know. Tell me it's in Boston and I am there. So this is still sci-fi fantasy. It's not like it's a modern day book set in Boston, but we have this cool map inside of it, which I'm super excited about. Honestly, I don't really know much about this, so we're not going to judge Audrey's instant purchase of this book. So the opening page has like 7 years ago in England, and then when the book opens, I think in present tense, we are in Boston. And I don't 100% know what this book is about, and I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm just going to read it, and we're going to be jazzed about it. So this is pitched as an Arthurian, like King Arthur. I can't say the word right. Arthurian legend. So we have rivals. We have a ring that could set someone free from a curse, and it says it's a series opener driven by love, revenge, and pure adrenaline. So in this book, we are following a girl named Tamsin. And it says she didn't ask to be a hollower. As a mortal with no magical talent, she was never meant to break into ancient crypts or compete with sorceresses and cunning folk for the treasures inside. But after her thieving foster father disappears without so much as a goodbye, it was the only way to keep herself and her brother alive. So we will find out what happens. Also, can I make you jealous of these end pages because they're so beautiful? Or if you guys have already picked it up, then you won't be jealous. But I'm highly motivated by what a book looks like. I just am. And then again, set in Boston. So I just absolutely loved lore. The research that went into it. I was definitely a mythology geek when I was a kid. Her passion for that book. It was set in sort of modern day New York City, but with a Greek god edge to it. And I just loved it so much. And I didn't see myself loving that book the way that I did. So I feel like Alexandra Bracken has my number and she knows how to get me. And I'm very excited for this. So out of my comfort zone, but I try to do that every once in a while. So we're going to give it a go. And by we, I mean me. So that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you again so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. You guys make sure to check out the description box down below. $5 using the code FLOWER. Audiobooks, hardcover books. It's just absolutely amazing. So be sure to check all of that out. And also let me know, what is an author that you have read one book by, swore you were going to read more but haven't done it yet? Who is your one and not done author? And we can chat about that and anything else you guys want to chat about down below. So thank you guys so much for watching, for being here, and I will see you guys in another video really soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.